Okay, I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm calling to order the Finance Committee on Monday, February 12th. Just a first comment that this meeting is being audio and video recorded. Please be careful if you are online not to share your screen unless you want everyone to see it. Okay, may I have an approval of the agenda, please?
So
That's Peter, and may I have a second?
Second.
Stephen, by roll call, so it'll be Joe.
yes,
Thank you.
Jill,
Jill,
yes.
thank you. Stephen,
Yes.
Chris.
Yes.
Peter.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Unanimous, okay. I'm going to open it up for public comment for any item that is not on the agenda. Seeing no hands on the screen, nor in the room. I am going to close the public comment and we are going to discussion of warrant articles for annual town meeting 2024, starting with Article 38. Leslie, I'm going to invite you to join us at the table and take us through the planning board's recommendations. Yeah. Perfect. Thank you, Leslie. Thank
Maria.
you. Thanks for being here.
Do you have any way of putting articles on the screen? Struggling over here with this iPad.
Let me, oh, just to see.
So.
Yeah.
Zoning articles start at 38 and they end at 59. So there's 22 total articles. Out of those, 12 are sponsored by the planning board. There's 8 bylaw amendments and 5 map changes. For citizen petitions, there's a total of 9, 4 of which are bylaw amendments and 5 of which are map changes. You may recall from last year that the planning board's motions changed a little bit to include language about housing choice legislation. Under the housing choice legislation, there are 9 possible reasons why an article may qualify for 50% voting threshold instead of the 2/3.
Okay,
So that's in the planning board motion for each of the articles.
okay, thank you.
All right, so starting with Article 38, this is a change in the height limitation in the CMI and CN zoning districts only. And this would apply for projects that contain at least 25% shy list eligible affordable housing. So in the CMI, right now, there's a special permit allowance for height to go up to 38 feet for any structure. This would allow a by right allowance to go up to 40 feet if 25% of the units are eligible for the shy list. So it's 80% AMI. In the CN district, it would allow a special permit to go up to 40 feet. Again, only if a minimum of 25% of the units are eligible to go on the shy list. So the planning board gave this a positive recommendation.
Leslie, does that allow for more units or what's the rationale for a different height if it has affordable units in it?
So it doesn't allow necessarily for more units. So the standards that are contained within the bylaw for apartments or apartment buildings, that stays the same. But the thought is with the change in height, it's more flexible. It provides more flexibility for design and may provide enough ceiling height to allow projects to get up to the maximum number of units. So just to simplify it, in CMI, you can have an apartment building with 6 bedrooms and up to 8 units. So that wouldn't change. But it may, by having the extra height, be able to encourage more of those to be built. Same thing with apartments.
So we're talking about like a 3rd story.
Yeah, or a
There's-
partial 3rd story.
How
And again,
does-
it's all subject to HDC review. So they would have to approve, the architectural design, but it increases the flexibility.
But if it's allowed by, I remember when this was up for revision because it got sort of remanded back to where we're at now because CMI used to be, everybody could do 40 feet for a year or 2, right? And there was, as I remember, some members of HCC who didn't like that because they thought, well, if it says it's allowed, then we have to do it and we don't have as much authority. How do those same people, it's mostly the same people, How do they feel about this one?
I haven't personally spoken with those people who
Yeah.
spoke out at one meeting about that. But I think in this case, it is a little bit different because this isn't for every project. This is specifically to support the creation of affordable housing.
Yeah.
It furthers the housing production plan. And, you know, again, the HDC has their own legislative authority. So whether it says that you can do it in zoning or not, really is irrelevant to their review authority for the architectural design.
This is Joe Wright. There are minimum heights for ceilings and bathrooms, and it may assist in that particular area.
Listen, just when you account for height, people could put big mounds and then build on the mound. How do you offset that?
Well, the height calculation is very complicated and can really only be done by a surveyor or an engineer. So I can't just.
So they actually go back to the ground level?
And there's a thing about it has to be 4 feet off and there's average mean grade and there's all of these components to calculating the height. It's not just from the base of the structure to the ridge. It's more complicated. Judge.
Any other questions?
No, thank you.
So the planning board made a positive motion. What's the preference of the committee for a motion?
Motion to adopt.
A motion to support the planning board. Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, so Peter made the motion, Chris seconded, and any further discussion on the motion? Okay, then roll call, Joe,
Aye.
thank you. Who else is?
Jill and
Jill?
Joanna.
Okay, Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
thank you. Stephen?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay, 39, please, Leslie.
Just one more thing on 38, that one, just qualified for housing choice, so it's a 50%. Okay, quantum of vote.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
So
so
it's
39 is entirely housekeeping. It is just changing the language in the definition of apartment to make it completely clear that an apartment within a commercial structure shall not occupy more than 50% of the first floor area of the commercial structure. So what's come up with the way the definition currently reads, you can have a mixed-use structure on a property and you can have an entirely residential structure on the same property. So obviously, if it's an entirely residential structure, the first floor is going to be more than 50%. So this just clarifies that this doesn't apply to the residential structure, only applies to the
okay,
and the planning board gave us a positive recommendation and it's a 2/3 vote.
okay, thank you. Questions? Any questions from the committee? Seeing none,
Motion to support the, planning board.
Second.
thank you. Okay, Peter made the motion, Stephen seconded, any further discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
thank you, Stephen,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, aye, unanimous, thank you. 40, please, Leslie.
Okay, 40 tertiary dwelling, this article does two things. One, it removes the requirement of a special permit when 3 units are located within a single structure. And then secondly, it makes the ground cover allowance and the gross floor area allowance the same number. Right now, one of them is 900 square feet and one of them is 650 square feet. So it just makes it 900 square feet for both. So it doesn't increase the size of the unit at all. The size was always capped at 900 square feet.
But you could have 3 floors of 900 square feet.
You could. But it would be 900 total.
Right. Oh, 900 total.
Yeah, 900 total.
Okay,
So,
The little cylinder.
yeah.
so what's the impact of removing the special permit requirement?
The special permit requirement came up because of a single application several years ago, and it hasn't come up again since. It just, we don't see a lot of them, first of all. And again, the tertiary unit is meant to be a year-round unit. So by putting in the special permit provision, it's just an impediment to permitting those. So the planning board still has to review them for adequacy of access. The planning board still has to review them to make sure that they meet the 900 square feet. So all it does is take away the added level of, public notice, a butter notification, that sort of thing. Because they can have 3 detached units and not have to go through that process.
So like for a secondary dwelling, it's not a special permit, it's just a permit that you're getting, so that it's bringing it back to that level.
Yes.
Makes sense.
Any other questions from the committee? Oh, what's the planning board?
Positive recommendation. And this one qualifies for housing choice, so 50% voting threshold.
Okay, any other questions from the committee? Seeing none, may I have a motion? Peter? Motion to support the planning board's recommendation, okay?
Second.
Second from Chris, thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, okay, Joanna?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Chris? Peter?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. 41, please, Leslie.
41, there's 2 sections to this article. It's amending the definition of front yard and amending section 16C, which is setback requirements. There are only 2 zoning districts which are treated the way the R1 and the RC2 districts are currently treated, which is that you have to maintain different setbacks if the lot is a corner lot. All other zoning districts do not have that requirement, so this would remove that and make these 2 districts, as far as setbacks, consistent with all other districts and how those are treated.
What was the logic before to have them be different?
No one really knows.
Okay.
And it just causes confusion. And it's kind of tucked in the bylaw in an area that if you don't know,
You wouldn't even know to look
you
it up.
wouldn't even look there. So this just eliminates that problem.
And I'm assuming planning board with a positive motion?
Positive motion, and before I kept saying 50% voting threshold, but simple majority.
Okay,
It's not-
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, we knew change.
What if it's the same road that like touches it on 2 sides?
That's a more complicated question than it may
Okay,
sound.
so we don't need to get into
Okay,
it.
thank
Yeah.
you.
You think about like where the road goes this way and all of a sudden goes. this way.
I have a particular interest in one property that's on Pilgrim Road where the, Pilgrim Road turns like this. And so it's technically the same road, but it touches 2 sides of the property.
Bartlett Road, that handy little road.
The
that we all
road would
get to
do
make.
that also,
Yes.
yeah,
We can talk about that on the side.
yeah,
When I have my
Another
bylaw
time.
in front of me.
sure.
Okay, any other further discussion about this? Okay, seeing none, planning board had a positive motion.
Motion to support.
Thank you.
Second,
Thank you. Peter and Stephen, right again. All right, any further discussion of the motions? I mean, none. I'm going to start with Peter this time.
Aye.
Thank you, Chris,
aye,
Stephen,
aye,
Denise, I, Joe,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna.
Aye.
Thank you. Okay. All right, Article 42.
Article 42 applies to flex developments, which are a form of subdivision where the lots are reduced in size in exchange for the preservation of open space. And right now, the bylaw is written in a way that the open space has to be subject to a conservation restriction held by a certain type of agency, or it has to be owned by the town or county or the land bank or an established nonprofit organization, the principle of which is the conservation of open land. So what the planning board has found is that sometimes it's very difficult for the proponent of the subdivision, the applicant, to find someone to take over this open space. So for, like I said, a for-profit development, that's an issue that they can deal with. But we've had it come up recently with an affordable project. And so as a result of that, this would add a waiver that would allow the planning board to allow for some other option for who holds the open space restriction and how the open space is preserved. So it doesn't reduce the amount of open space required. It just allows for more flexibility as to how it's dealt with.
Questions for
So
Leslie? Chris?
maybe it's more of a trust me than it ends up being then in that case. I mean, how would you characterize the difference in those options? It's kind of just a,
Well, I
Less
mean,
secure.
you would have to prove to the planning board that the open space is still going to be preserved for open space.
Mhm.
And it would still have to be documented, however that is, but it would give the board more options to consider than currently in the bylaw. Like, for instance, the bylaw currently says that you have to have one of these agencies provide basically a commitment letter ahead of time saying that they would hold the open space restriction. Well, if we had a project that was completely built, and then the person who, or the group that had submitted the commitment letter was like, well, no, we kind of like don't want to do it. And so now, the development group, which in this case was affordable, so it didn't matter that much, was stuck in a situation where they didn't comply with the permit. But the project was already built. So this just is a way out and it requires the planning board's approval, it requires them to consider it, but it only applies to affordable units.
and for all these, they have to be preserved as open space, but it doesn't have to be public space, right?
It
Or it does.
does not have to be public space, no,
It doesn't,
usually it is though.
doesn't this say that the whole requirement could be waived?
It reads like that, but if you had the whole bylaw in front of you, you would see that that's in a completely different section of the bylaw. And we went through that at the planning board public hearing, the land council was concerned, land and water council was concerned about that. And in the end, I think her issue was, I guess.
Okay. So I'm sure we will hear from her on the day if it hasn't been
I mean,
addressed.
it is referring to one, right?
Right, it's just-
It's referring to the paragraph one, which is just about the requirement to have it recorded.
yeah, in a different
Yeah, but
section,
if you
there's a
don't
chart.
record it, then you just have like somebody who says that they'll do it and then they sell all the property and then they don't care.
Well, that's why I said it feels a little more.
That's what I mean. So
Well, and also remember, for the flex development, it's subject to a special permit, which is subject to conditions, which are enforceable by the town. So that's an added layer of.
I'm less concerned about the property becoming developable in the future or saleable than I am about who's gonna maintain it. If you don't have the land bank or some other group, even if it's the owners, like I'm actually not sure how the affordability of the units affects the fact that the neighbors could all own it under D. That seems to work, whether they're 25% affordable or 100% affordable, like the neighbors could band together and say, I'll make sure to mow the lawn or, whatever it is. I mean, we're typically not talking about huge acreage here. But, this was all vetted and I wasn't at, so we'll let Land and Water Council tell us.
I mean, they get a lot of discussion, this article.
I'll watch it.
And the recommendation?
Positive recommendation and passage is 2/3.
This doesn't get 50%.
No, because it doesn't increase housing.
Okay. There a motion?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Okay, Peter made the motion, Stephen seconded. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay, hearing none. Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you.
May I ask a question about the whole 50%,
Sure, of
about
course.
2/3 thing? Is there ever disagreement at the planning board about whether something qualifies? I mean, are these shaded as more of an art, or is it always super cut and dry that you can determine? And I'm asking more for when citizen articles come around, and if the citizen is being held to the 2/3 of the 50, is that open for interpretation?
Well, so the criteria are outlined in NGL 48 section 5. So it's all spelled out. And under the housing choice, the planning board makes that determination. So far.
So they're
we
the
haven't had-
authority in
They're
determining.
the authority. And so far, we haven't had any disagreements.
they've all been unanimous in that.
Yeah, and the Attorney General could disagree with the planning board's interpretation, but so far, they've been supportive.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, 43.
43 rear lot subdivision. This does not change the requirements for a rear lot subdivision, except that the way the bylaw is currently worded, you have to provide a couple of things to qualify for a rear lot subdivision. You either have to provide a proof plan, which would show that you can meet all the subdivision minimum requirements to create the number of lots that you're proposing to create. Or you can provide a subdivision plan that's already been approved by the planning board and that's gone through the appeal period without an appeal. Or you can submit an approval not required plan that's been endorsed by the planning board. So those are three ways that you get to a rear lot subdivision, which doesn't increase density. It just changes the configuration and provides more flexibility for design. So what we have realized is that the way it's written, it requires that the approval not required plan be signed by the board. And in order to be signed by the board, the planning board has to find that the roadway providing access to the lots is of adequate width, grade, and construction for access. So sometimes this means cutting a lot of vegetation, cutting down trees, opening up right of ways. And if you're not going to use it in the end, maybe it's not the most environmentally responsible to go in and cut a lot of vegetation that doesn't need to be cut in the end. So this language just says that you have to submit an approval not required plan that is eligible to be endorsed.
Okay,
So the board could look at it and say, okay, we would sign that if we made you do all this work. But the work's not necessary for the end result on the real lot plans. So they gave this a positive recommendation and it's a 2/3 vote.
thank you. Questions? How many of these do you get a year?
Out
Out of
Quite a
curiosity?
few.
Oh,
a few
really?
rear lots.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think just until recently, no one had quite picked up on the fact that the A&R plan had to be signed in advance. So this sort of, in a way, matches up with what the board was doing in some cases.
okay. Other questions?
Motion to accept.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. And any further discussion on the motion? No, okay, Joe?
Aye.
Thank you, Jill?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Denise, aye, thank you. Thank you to myself, there we go. Article 44.
44 is a bylaw amendment to the Moorlands Management District section of the zoning bylaw. And right now, the planning board is a special permit granting authority for anything in the MMD. And this would change that to the zoning board of appeals, except where there's subdivision, which is highly unlikely out there, given the minimum lot size. The zoning board is really better suited for the types of applications that come in. Usually it's someone requesting a swimming pool or an addition to their house or building a garage or that sort of thing. And they're more like issues that are neighbor to neighbor issues, not broader planning issues.
Okay,
So a lot has shifted over time from the zoning board to the planning board. And we thought this was something that could shift in the other direction.
and what does the zoning board think of that?
I spoke with them, I think at their October meeting, 100% spoke with them, and they were fine with it.
Okay. Okay, further questions? No further questions? Okay.
Motion to accept.
Oh, I assume that was positive. We don't have to do that.
Oh,
Aye.
I'm sorry, positive motion 2/3.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay, Article 45.
45 is a citizen petition. also dealing with the Morelands Management District. And I think there might be a typo in here, if you could just give me a second. I'm gonna double check that, but, so 45, citizen petition. The intent here was to prohibit swimming pools in the Morelands Management. And this was an article that the planning board was also considering putting in on their own. So they supported the prohibition. And you'll see in the motion, the language and the format in the planning board motion differs from the citizen petition. And that's because the citizen petition referenced an old version of the zoning bylaw instead of the version of the zoning bylaw that was recently approved at town meeting. So the planning board's motion accomplishes the same thing that the citizen petition proposed. So they supported the concept, and the passage is 2/3.
Let's down here, it says it's prohibited in the citizen warrant article, and then when you go down to amend section 139-13, uses allowed by special permit with site plan review is recreational outdoor water features, swimming pool, blah, blah, blah.
That is what I
Oh, are
just,
prohibited, okay, I didn't see the are prohibited,
but I just circled that to check, just to make sure that language is the way it should be.
okay,
So we'll double check.
all right. Okay, so this had a positive motion from the,
Planning board.
Does anyone have any questions?
No.
No question? Okay,
Motion to accept.
thank you,
Second.
thank you. Okay, any further discussion on the motion? Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jill,
I'll recuse, Denise.
okay, thank you. That's right, Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Denise, I, okay, thank you. Okay, good. 46, please.
46 is the zoning map change proposed by the planning board. They ultimately voted to take no action only because this is a property owner that we've been working with for several years. They're part of the RC2 zoning phase out. You can see that in pink above the blue and below the purple. This year we proposed to them, maybe you want to go to the commercial Mid-Island district because that's moved out to that area, or perhaps the C-Tech, which gave them extra things to think about. So they asked if we could put this off for another year, which is fine. We have a couple of other RC2 pieces out there that we are still working on with the owners to decide which district is most appropriate.
Okay. So straightforward. Even I'm gonna make this motion. Okay, motion to accept the planning board's take no action.
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Peter,
Aye.
thank you. Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jill. Oh,
Aye.
Jill's back again. Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Denise, I. Okay, good. Those are easy ones. 47, please. I have 47 on here, but I don't have it in here. Is that the one, you said there was gonna be one that was lagging when you spoke? last
Oh,
week.
Fine,
no.
Chris.
Oh, there's 47, it's right there. Never mind, sorry.
Okay, so 47, and I have a better map that I meant to send to Maria for the projection, but I forgot to do that, so sorry. But this is correct. This just doesn't show the detail that I think might be helpful. So this is a zoning change from R5 to RC2 or C2. And some background on this, this land is part of the Pinecrest Drive subdivision. Our office has been working with the Pinecrest Drive subdivision on a rezoning, probably going back to 2005. Part of that rezoning includes the creation of a roadway to serve their subdivision. What's known as Pinecrest Drive is really just a driveway easement. So it doesn't provide frontage for any of the lots. There's some inequity within the subdivision because some people have been able to divide their property, others haven't because of placement. there are all these strips running from the front to the back, if you can see that on there. So we've been working with them for years on basically a redesign of their subdivision to make it more consistent, to provide more equity between the owners and to create a roadway. So inadvertently, the land that you see that's outlined in red, outlined in blue, was rezoned ahead of other properties. So that resulted in these two property owners having their property treated differently from all the other lots within the subdivision. So if you see the RC2 along Old South Road to the left of this, that was left in RC2 so that those lots could maintain the minimum frontage and could, in the future, be divided off from the property in the back that the same owners own. And that was intended to apply to these property owners as well. So by placing them back in the RC2, their land along Old South Road will be treated the same way as all the other property owners in the neighborhood. The land in the blue, those are actually a lot of little strips. They're just not shown on the GIS. Those are proposed to go to C-Tech, and those will be conveyed to the properties along Mary Ann, shown in purple in C-Tech. And then this will allow the whole plan that we've been working on for all these years with them to move forward. And then perhaps next year, the property that's temporarily going into RC2 will go back to R5. So this is a temporary fix for a much larger issue. And it will keep this process going forward to finish that project. So the planning board gave it a positive recommendation, and that requires a 2/3 vote.
So one of the things that we ask citizens to do when they bring us articles is to describe how many new lots can be created or how many new dwellings. What does this do?
It doesn't change. I mean, if it was left in RC2 all along, they could have 2 dwelling units on each lot. But by inadvertently putting them in R5, it merged, I'll call them the 2 front lots, with the rest of their property. So they should have been able to preserve 2 5,000 square foot lots in the front. But when they were placed in RC2, it merged that with the rest of their land, so they don't have the 2 lots that everyone else has. I know this is confusing, but it's
So is R5 better than RC2 from the owner's perspective?
well, it depends. I mean, we're phasing out RC2 as part of the master plan.
Right, okay.
Which is part of why everyone, I think, gets confused about why we're trying to put 2 properties back in. But under RC2, you can have 2 dwelling units and you can have some commercial.
Okay,
Under R5, you can have 3 dwelling units and no commercial.
okay,
But the big difference here is not so much the use, it's the fact that each of these property owners had 2 lots, now they have 1 lot. So this would
Okay.
give them their 2 lots back.
But where are the back lots getting their frontage from? Where did they get it from before when they had 2 lots?
Marion Drive.
Those lots touch Mary Ann Drive?
little lines of all the way up.
How wide is the space between the 2 lines?
I think the lines are 10 feet wide.
So don't they still touch Mary Ann Drive and they touch Old South Road and the frontage requirements are identical?
No, the problem is when the frontage for R5 is 50 feet. The frontage for RC2 is 40 feet. So the front portions only have 40 feet of frontage. So as long as they're in R5, they merge with the back portion of the lot through those strips.
So we're creating 2 more lots than what we have today, but we say it's an equity issue because they used to be able to do it. So we want to give them the right again to do it.
We do, because that's what was given to everyone else within that subdivision. So they had the ability for two, they got taken away inadvertently, and we're just restoring it.
Gotcha. Okay,
And all the RC2 is gonna go CTEC?
I believe that will go to R5. R5. After the road is put in. So once the roadway goes in, the legal frontage will be created for the back lots. And then those front ones can be separated, and they'll have pre-existing non-conforming frontage on Old South Road.
What could you possibly do with that the back lots?
The back lots, some are in CTEC, the purple there.
Yeah.
And then the rest are in R10, which is a 10,000 square foot residential zone. And all of the owners, there's all these private agreements going where they've all agreed to not subdivide more than X number of times once a new road is put in. So there's been a lot of negotiation that's gone into sort of making this happen. And this right here is thrown a little bit of a wrench into the overall plan.
Further questions? It's clear, completely crystal clear to everybody who's a planning expert. So, and then for the rest of us, it's sort of clear. So. Okay, may I have a motion? The planning board had a positive.
Oh, they
motion.
gave that a positive recommendation.
Yeah, I have that, thanks.
Motion to accept.
Okay,
second.
thank you. Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. 48.
48, no, this is an easy one for that. R10 to R10L, nobody your way. So this came in a couple of years ago as a citizen petition. I believe it was a citizen petition. It could have been sponsored by the planning board, but either way, we reached out to the neighborhood and they were all supportive of the article, changing their zoning to R10L. Somehow in the motion, the L got removed. And so they were placed in just the R10 district. And the difference is R10 allows duplexes, R10L does not. R10 allows second dwellings and R10L requires a special permit. So the neighborhood wanted, to preserve more of the existing character through the R10L district. So this is just correcting that. And the passage is 2/3.
And planning board was positive.
Yes.
Who caught it? Did you guys catch it or did they catch it? So.
It was caught when someone applied for a permit and we said, that's not an R10, that's an R10L. And it was discovered.
And that person says, fine, put it in L, because I already have my second. Yeah, I know that guy.
Okay, then.
Motion to accept.
All right,
Second.
thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none. Okay, Peter,
Aye.
Chris.
Aye.
Stephen.
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Denise, I thank you. Okay, 49. Please.
49, this is also an easy one. So this is amending the zoning map to place a portion of airport property that's currently in the LUG3 district, which is a 3-acre-ish residential district, in the CI district, which is the commercial district, the industrial district. And then secondly, to amend the town and country designations map to move it from the country to the town overlay. So all this is doing is reflecting the actual use of the property, which is industrial. And this is the strip where the additional pavement is taking place.
Okay. All right,
So that's all within the airport fence?
It's within the airport fence, so.
Does FAA care about our zoning? Why is this necessary?
It's not necessary. If it's federal land, or excuse me, town-owned land, it's subject to airport requirements. It doesn't have to be rezoned, but as part of the master plan is to reflect the actual use of the property on the zoning map. So it's used industrially, It should be showing industrial and zone industrial. Instead of giving the false perception that those are going to be 3-acre lots.
So a negative vote here would not stop the airport from using this property anyway.
And is airplane storage an allowed use in CI and not in lug 3?
Well, again, it's, are they subject to,
Right, I mean, like, you know, when you say use, it's like, well, what is the use?
Did we pass David Worth's thing about not letting helicopters in Lug 3?
We did, but there's no air, I don't think you can do anywhere.
so that doesn't impact what they can or can't do, it just shows it on the map. Accurately.
Great place to have a house. Any further questions? I'm assuming this has a planning board motion positive.
It has a planning board motion and surprisingly this qualifies for housing choice, so it's a 50% voting.
Now I don't know what that means.
Don't you?
Gulfstream choice.
You wouldn't wanna live there?
You can definitely put less housing on CI than lug 3, so I don't understand. And you definitely can't do it within the airport anyway. Did we get a motion yet, Peter?
Not yet. Motion to accept.
Okay, second.
Thank you. Further discussion? Okay, then Peter,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Okay. 50, please, Leslie.
D is various zoning map changes for parcels that are designated as open space. This is an ongoing effort, again, to accurately reflect to the best that we can, the actual use of property. So all of the properties are used for open space and we do not have a specific open space zoning district. Although we floated that idea several times. So what the planning board has been doing is for anything in the town overlay district, they place it in the lowest density district, which is R40. And for anything in the country, they place the property in LUG 3. The planning board gave this positive recommendation and the voting threshold is 2/3.
So even if it doesn't qualify, but even if it's not 3 acres, it still goes into LUG 3?
It does, because they're open space, they're not being built on.
Right.
It doesn't
matter.
matter.
Okay. Any questions? Nope, and I'm assuming this is a positive motion, seeing it's the planning board's work.
Yes,
Okay, and is it 2/3 as well?
2/3.
Thank you. I'll get in the hang of that. Different last trick up. Peter,
Motion to accept.
thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Stephen. Any further discussion? Seeing none. Joe,
Aye.
thank you. Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay. 51, please.
I could just point something out, which you guys may be aware of. In the back of the warrant, in recent years, the planning board has been including a chart that shows how the island is distributed in terms of zoning. Will be in the final warrant. So,
Okay.
so you can see, we have like high density, medium density, low density. So back to, putting the open space in the lowest density. That shows that, I guess it removes the perception that, oh, there's all this high density, when some of it's actually for open space. Okay, so check that out. Get your warrants.
It is.
Very exciting stuff.
I'm not disputing that.
51, this is a citizen petition. And the petitioners here. The planning board gave this positive recommendation. It's placing a portion of 71 Hammock Pond Road, currently located in the LUG 2 district in the R40 district. And basically most of the property was subject to a conservation restriction that capped the overall ground cover. And then the planning board rezoned it, put it in LUG 2, which reduced the ground cover allowed on the buildable portion of the lot So by placing a portion of it back into R40, it allows them to have ground cover that is consistent with what they had before, and that is consistent with what is specifically mentioned in the conservation restriction.
Okay.
And there was a similar article last year on which the planning board supported, and I believe you supported it as well.
Mhm. I remember. Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I guess I'm just surprised this one's not 50, this one's 2/3. But I'm only 'cause I'm trying to get in the rhythm of understanding, but
I'm going to email you all the
thank you, that's
criteria.
probably good.
And we call it housing choice because it was in the housing choice legislation, but they're not all specifically related. to housing.
Any further questions? No, straightforward. Do you want to say anything? No?
Not if we're moving towards support.
Yeah,
Yeah.
reading the room.
Yeah.
It's like, it's looking like it's going my way, so I'm not saying a word. I'm guessing planning board is positive motion on this.
Positive motion, 2/3 vote.
Okay, thank you.
Motion to accept.
Thank you,
Second,
thank you. I'm not even gonna ask. Joe?
Aye.
Thank you, Jill,
Aye.
Joanna,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you, unanimous. There you go. All right, 52, please.
52, this is a companion to 51, because the portion of the property went into the R40 district, it also needs to move from the country overlay to the town overlay.
Okay.
So this received a positive recommendation from the planning board, and it requires a 2/3 vote.
It's just housekeeping, basically. at this point.
Yes.
Any other comments or questions?
Motion to accept.
Thank you,
Second,
thank you. I'm just gonna go right to roll call. Joanna,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay, good. 53.
All right, 53, now we're into citizen articles
Mhm.
exclusively.
Yeah.
53, LUGT to R20, 25 Rugged Road. This particular parcel has been discussed a few times. And I'm sorry you don't have an updated map, but the planning board motion supports a 30,000 square foot portion of the lot in the upper northwest corner, going from LUG2 to R20. So it would create one additional lot that is consistent with the zoning across the street. That's consistent with the much smaller lots that are in the 40B next door. There's sewer, there's water. The planning board had a lot of discussion about this, but ultimately recommended.
Okay,
And again, it's one lot.
and why did the planning board have a lot of discussion? Because it was setting a precedent for the other love two to be parceled out?
Yeah, that's what they were concerned about.
So that I got there all by myself.
Yeah. So I heard from, is Linda the citizen sponsor? Or is,
No, it's Irene
is-
Schreiber,
okay, so it's
She's
the property
involved,
owner.
but yeah.
Yeah,
Linda.
so Linda brought the petition to my office, so we got to talk about it. And it was a case, as she described it, about the property owner needs to sell a portion to
Oh, to be able
pay
to.
for living
This was last year.
expenses and taxes. Yeah, yeah.
We had
And
the
so,
same discussion
and,
last year.
and so it's the same property, it's the
Okay.
same issue. And I didn't get a satisfactory answer about why we can't use existing covenant lots, or this property is big enough, you could do 2 covenant lots. So I mean, for me, this does set a precedent, and we have done a lot of hard work over the last, I'd say, 8 years in creating covenant lot and secondary covenant lot and all sorts of other things. This doesn't have any affordability component or a year-round component. And I think there is a financial impact to setting this kind of precedent. So I would just put that out there to the committee.
Mhm.
And maybe at the least, we can rewatch this one,
Yeah,
like find out what the planning board's discussion was, what their vote was, and see
Okay.
if it impacts how we vote.
okay. I'm happy to postpone.
And their vote was 3-1.
Okay. but
Curtis,
that's not many people.
Curtis Barnes question. The concept of spot zoning comes up to me. In this case, is this what one would call spot zoning, and could it lead to further spot zoning? I think I'm
Leslie's
trying
the
to
expert,
follow up.
Leslie's the expert on that, Curtis.
This isn't spot zoning because it extends a zoning district that's already there. It extends it across the street. It's not an isolated
It's not islanded zoning.
rezoning for the property owner's economic benefit. While she did say on the record, there was some economics involved. It's extending it across the street, so it instantly is not spot zoning.
So one of the concepts that I've heard expressed over the years is that you look for natural barriers between zones. And a road seems to me to be a perfect, I mean, not technically natural, but it's an existent barrier where you'd say, okay, over here is something and over here is something else. As soon as it comes across the road, all the other properties, I mean, we've seen this with sewer, like as soon as the neighbor gets it, then you get it. And there's no case to be made to not give it.
You see the same thing above it with the R40, then. You can say the same thing.
I think it's worth watching the planning board discussion on it. And I think it's worth potentially having the article sponsor come and chat with us about it. As you all know, we very rarely diverge from what the planning board recommends. However, we have done so in the past. My favorite swimming pool article of all time. So I think it's worth doing some homework on it and then we can bring it back at a future meeting. Chris?
Can I just ask, were the sort of affordability subdivision options that Stephen mentioned, did that get discussed at the planning board?
That was discussed, I would say at length.
Okay.
They did pose the question, why can't you just create a covenant unit? Why can't you create 2 covenant units? And they voted the way they voted. So the video might help.
Okay, all right, we'll,
What was the date of that meeting, do we know?
All these meetings are blending
Yeah,
together.
no
I'll
kidding.
email it to you. I think it was last week.
it had to have been, I think it was last week, Leslie, that you mentioned it.
I'm
So,
gonna send you all the list. I'm gonna send you that.
Thank you.
thank you. So we're gonna postpone that one. Joe, Jill, Joanna, you're okay with us postponing the discussion on this one to a future meeting?
That's fine by me.
Okay,
That's fine with me. I'm opposed to it as well.
okay,
I think if I could just make a comment, I think Stephen raises a good point, and one of the reasons why it deserves our scrutiny, I think, is because we write a lot of checks, so we endorse the writing of a lot of checks for affordability
Mhm.
housing, and so that's where this one seems to have a little more overlap with our, from my perspective.
Thank you, Chris. It's a good point. Okay, 54, please, Leslie.
54, you saw this last year, R40 to CN for 1 Evergreen and 21 Airport Road. Last year, the proponent of the article, well, actually not the proponent, the contract purchaser for 1 Evergreen Way decided not to move forward because they wanted some time to work out some issues with the neighbors and they didn't own the property just yet, which presented some concerns to people. So the planning board changed their motion. I think it was a technical amendment to take no action. So this year, the owner of 1 Evergreen Way, which is now Nisha, has been working with some of the owners in the neighborhood in Evergreen that were concerned. And they've put together a list of uses that they would be willing to restrict the property from in the future. They also reached out to the owner of 21 Airport Road because that property has to be included in order to get over to the CN district. And he also agreed to all of these uses except for 1, which is motor vehicle sales, repair, service. And that's because that would interfere with his existing business. So the planning board gave this a positive recommendation. It is a 50%, simple majority vote. And what will happen is the owner's attorneys will draft a restriction. It will be reviewed by town council. It'll be executed. Town council will hold it until after the vote of town meeting. And if town meeting votes to approve the change, then it'll get filed with the clerk, with the registry. And if it doesn't get approved, then the restriction is not needed. it'll go away.
Okay. Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jill.
How is this different than the last one we talked about where there's a barrier there? This is spot zoning as well.
It's not spot zoning, I think, I don't wanna speak for Stephen, but, you know, roads sometimes are a natural place to stop zoning, but there are many instances where the zoning district crosses the road. And this is one of them, and the prior article is as well. And if you look at the zoning map, you'll see lots of examples where the district crosses the road.
If I may.
Chris?
I think the other thing that distinguishes this one is it doesn't have an alternative that gets at the same issue. Right? I mean, the other one was saying, hey, we want to look at these affordability options. That would seem to be a terrific opportunity for the person and the community. This doesn't have that. They need the zoning to do their intended use, and apparently the neighbors are on board.
Yeah, no, I think those are good points.
Are the neighbors on board? I might have missed that, sorry.
As of the last meeting, they were. And things can always change, but we've met with them at the staff level. We've met with the owners of these properties, with the neighbors. They were at the planning board. I think all of their concerns are addressed with the restriction that they've proposed to put in place.
What latitude does any single neighbor to have to say, I'll support this as long as you restrict one of the uses that would otherwise be allowed in the zone?
Well, I mean, depends on how the owner of the property, subject to the rezoning, wants to interact with that neighbor. I mean, they're not required to cooperate. It's really outside of the jurisdiction of the planning board entirely. But in this case, Nisha has said that they want to be good neighbors to their neighbors. They want to work cooperatively. And the neighbors' concerns, I believe, were not with the operations of Nisha, but were with something in the future. What if they had to close and they had to sell, and now the property's commercial? You know, what could happen? So that's why Nisha agreed to restrict a lot of the commercial uses, so that removes that concern from the neighbors.
Got it.
Joanna?
I just have one question. So did Nisha participate and get to, air their concerns with the planning board, since this largely affects them and their plans?
This is their article, and
Okay.
they were at the planning board hearings, they were at outside meetings with staff and with the neighbors.
I had
So-
just heard that they had some concerns about this, and I was making sure that, or just really checking in to see that it had been fully discussed and they were happy with the outcome. Because it's a big effort on their part, right?
Right.
And I would hate to see them, as in any organization, get stuck in a situation where they, weren't aware of the limitations.
They've been participating every step.
Great, thank you.
Their list, right?
Yeah.
And presumably, I'm not asking you to speculate here, though, all these restrictions would keep it from sort of dominoing down. Because were we to come back next year and say, well, what about all the rest of that R40 that's now next to it? But presumably you'd look back at this list of restrictions, right, which would limit people's interest in
Yeah,
wanting to
and
make
I
those
also think this is a clear, ending for CN. I mean, it's directly across from the airport. One of the properties is already used commercially. The animal shelter, veterinary type use isn't necessarily commercial. And, it's abutting an entirely residential neighborhood. So expanding commercial back into Evergreen or even further down Monahans, just on the face of it, doesn't seem like a good plan.
Does the Cedar Crest, whatever number, 2 or 3 that's in there, does that HOA include this property or not?
I'm not sure if it includes this property or not, but I know that quite a few of the owners in close proximity to this have been involved.
Got it. Okay.
Okay, all set? Motion, Peter?
Motion to accept.
Second.
Thank you. Chris?
Aye.
Peter?
Aye.
Stephen?
Aye.
Jill?
Aye.
Joanna?
Aye.
Joe?
Aye.
Denise, aye. Thank you. Okay. 55. Haven't we seen this before?
You have seen this before, yes.
Third time.
And it's slightly different this time. So
Okay.
3 Cobble Court. So before the article included multiple properties. This article includes 1 property. It's a citizen petition, and I have to remind you. The proposal is to go from R10, which would just allow a primary dwelling, secondary dwelling, tertiary dwelling, to commercial neighborhood. The lot difference, as far as minimum lot size, it would go from 10,000 to 7,500, so it's not a big difference. The owner is interested in residential use only, perhaps apartments, maybe some light commercial, like office. It's right next to the dental office. And he has agreed to a whole list of restrictions which are part of the planning board motion. And it would be the same as with the prior article. The restriction would be drafted, reviewed by town council, executed, and then held in an escrow pending the outcome of town meeting.
Is the property big enough to be divided under? Now that it's, if we reduce the ground, the minimum lot size to 7,500, it looks like it's right on the cusp.
It may be dividable. I actually mentioned on that question by Megan before I came here today. And then forgot. And it was not, I don't believe I was at the planning board hearing when this was discussed, but I may have been. If you want a definitive answer on that.
It looks like it's right on it, but then it comes down to like frontage. I don't know.
Would have to be 15,000 square feet to be dividable, right?
Yeah, and it looks like it's maybe 15,200.
Are you looking on GIS?
Yeah,
Otherwise, how would you know that?
yeah, just eyeballing it.
Yeah, but also.
I was like,
Looks like it's to have to me.
I was thinking, what?
Yeah, I don't know about Cobble Court if it has enough frontage there.
I think, again, we can hold this to confirm it, but I think last year or the year before, when the 2 articles, excuse me, the 2 properties were included, it would have allowed 1 extra lot with the 2.
Yeah.
So I don't think this one has enough, but I can confirm that.
Let's wait on this one then,
Yeah.
too, until we know that.
What is it, formula?
Sure.
Formula business would be like McDonald's, Humvees.
Franchise.
Yeah. There's a
Changed.
Can't have a kennel in there.
And the
Great
ra-
definition.
and the rationale for approval is just it's all surrounded by CN, so.
I mean, unless everybody's comfortable with it now, but we can also just hold it over till we discuss 53 again, up to you, up to all of you.
What did the neighbors have to say? Or have they not
I-
weighed in yet?
Don't believe there was any testimony from the neighbors.
Gotcha.
Before, when the 2 parcels were included that are owned by this property owner, the neighbors across the street were opposed. But I don't think they provided any testimony to the planning board.
Okay.
Planning board was positive motion on this,
On the motion,
and it's 2/3.
that one is, simple majority, yes.
Yes, look at that. The 1 in 2 chance of getting that right.
Is there a list? I don't have the article in front of me. Is there a list of the things they're restricting?
Yes,
It's a funny list.
I like the kennel, right?
Yeah, really.
Yeah, there's a kennel, they don't want that. Of all the things that are in there.
You can have a medical clinic, but not a kennel.
I mean, if the committee's ready to make a motion now, we can, or we can hold off and find out if it's dividable.
Well, you think it's about 15,000 square feet?
I do. It's definitely about 15,000. I don't know if it's definitely over, and I don't know if they have the frontage.
Will that change people's votes here?
No.
Well, then let's not wait.
Okay, in which case, may I have a motion?
Motion to accept.
Okay,
Second.
okay, thank you. All right, Peter,
Aye.
all right, Stephen,
Aye.
Chris,
Aye.
Joanna,
Hi,
Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Lisa, aye. Okay. Alrighty, 56.
56, R5 to CN 75B Old South Road. This is the housing Nantucket property, a portion of it, of which is already in CN. This would place the entire parcel in CN, and it would allow them to have one additional dwelling unit. Okay, which would be part of the program.
Yeah, I
We should have kept Miller's Lane. I don't know. I don't know why we gave that up. Be a nice pass through. To get some cars off Old South Road,
Yep, absolutely. Okay, that's fine.
Where was that?
right here. That a corridor that's in the green, and then the subject property, and then the CN above it. Is all a road.
Cool. Any other comments or questions? No, I'm getting the plan. Wait.
Sorry.
First, we have to find out what they said. Planning
Oh,
board,
the planning board gave that a positive recommendation,
and it's 50%.
50%.
Look at that.
Yeah, really.
All right, Peter,
Motion to, oh, yeah, aye.
okay, no, go ahead and make your motion.
Motion to accept.
Yep,
Second.
thank you. Okay, now Peter,
Aye.
good, Chris,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Joanna,
hi.
Jill,
Aye.
Joe. Joe,
Aye.
thank you. Denise, aye. Okay. 57,
57, this is amending the definition of ground cover to allow an exemption for greenhouses or greenhouse shed. So right now, there's an exemption for a 200 square foot shed.
Yep.
Or multiple sheds, which in the aggregate do not exceed 200 square feet. And we have a very specific definition of shed. So this person is proposing to include in that greenhouses. So it wouldn't increase the 200 square foot exemption, it would just allow a greenhouse and a shed or just a greenhouse. Okay, so 2/3 planning board gave it a positive recommendation.
Do we have a good definition of greenhouse?
We do not, and she did not propose one, but we do use the term greenhouse in other places in the bylaw. So that's probably something for another town meeting.
So we thinking that it's an all glass construction situation.
Not a house painted green.
Yeah, right.
And greenhouses are permanent structures that require HTC approval.
that
And
are
they have
sheds.
to meet setbacks and
Yeah.
all that.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions?
Motion to accept.
Okay,
Second.
thank you. All right, Peter,
Aye.
Stephen,
Aye.
Chris,
All right.
Joanna,
Hi,
thank you. Jill,
Aye.
Joe,
Aye.
Lisa, aye. Okay. Now the next one's a bit more complicated. 58,
It is.
it is.
And
I know you're going to do an excellent job here, Leslie, trying to explain this
We
to us.
will see, and if you have a lot of complicated questions, you may want to have the article.
Yeah, we can have hands on,
We'll
yeah,
see. So citizen petition to create middle income inclusionary housing. So that's housing that's required to be created under certain thresholds of permitting. So this would add a new language to the bylaw in subsection 9 of zoning. And the article does advance objectives within the housing production plan, within the select board strategic plan, and within the master plan as it relates to the creation of deed restricted, income restricted housing. And that the housing in this article would apply to households at or below 240% of the area median income. So I think it's been referred to as attainable housing in here. So the applicability of this, it would apply to any division of land into 5 or more lots. It would apply to commercial development, 5,000 square feet or greater. And that would be in a structure. It doesn't apply to like a landscape yard. And it would apply to the construction of 5 or more dwelling units on one or more contiguous lots. And so the provision would be that you have to set aside at least 20% of the lots for this income bracket. So that's, 1 out of 5. At least 20% of the units in a multi-unit development. So these are the apartments. And then at least 1 dwelling unit for every 5,000 square feet of non-residential gross floor area of commercial use. So this would require a special permit to be issued by the planning board. So you would, in theory, get your 5 lot subdivision approved, and then you would have to go to the planning board to have them issue a special permit for these attainable units. There's a lot of information in here, so I'm not going to go through it all. And the planning board gave it a positive recommendation. And it's a 2/3 vote at town meeting.
Was it unanimous?
I believe it was.
So I don't understand, if anybody's doing a subdivision of 5 lots or more, they would come under this
Yes.
restriction.
Yes.
So if I'm building 4 $20 million homes, I have to build 1 home that's gonna be, $1 million.
Financially
If
cheaper.
they're-
Yeah,
If it's 5 or more lots.
right. Okay, I just wanna make sure I understand it.
You need a special permit to be exempted from this, or there's no way to be exempted from this, so you need the special permit to show you're complying with this.
You would need the special permit to show you're complying, and the planning board could impose any additional conditions.
The middle income housing units have to be within the subject property, or they can be provided elsewhere. I'm thinking like when Nantucket Golf Club built a golf club, they reproduced the Serengeti elsewhere.
Let's see, I'm happy to do this, because it's, again, it's a citizen article. It's not one that I have fully memorized.
So people have income.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, I'd like to go back and watch the planning board on this too.
Me too. And also have Ann come present, because I'm thinking about this, and whilst I applaud the intention, I just think if I have a piece of property and I'm able to divide it into 5 units, I don't love imposing property rights on people who, I just don't love it. I'm reluctant to tell people how to use their property, even for good causes.
Well, I also wonder about, if there's a more effective way to do it, like if, that might not be the appropriate place. If your property in your zone where you have no town water and you have no sewer and there's no bike path and you don't have bus access, you live in a nice neighborhood, by the way.
I was gonna say, or is it because I,
But-
live in the Serengeti here?
Yeah,
What you just
So
described.
because, you have none of those things, but you have a large tract of land and now we're gonna make one affordable unit out there. And
That's
that,
my swamp, so.
Right.
But that's a separate issue.
but that might not be the best place, whereas if we made you contribute a certain sum of money that could buy or create a unit somewhere else.
Provision of attainable housing units offsite.
In section I.
Okay, so you can do it offsite. Now, what if Chris, being the hard-nosed business person that he is, he has a very large tract of land and he says, well, I'm not gonna do a 5 lot subdivision, I'm gonna do 4. And I'm gonna keep 1 big chunk separate and he's gonna sell it to his brother, who maybe someday in the future, he divides that property. That would probably be possible to do.
anything less than 5.
Crafty.
That was you. That was you.
Yeah. How about someone building for employee housing? If someone wanted to build, take a piece of property and build a number of units for their
Would
employees.
be all affordable.
Not
Oh,
necessarily.
yeah, no.
I mean, you wouldn't have to restrict it as such, and a bank might look at it differently. If you did.
It's actually kind of similar in my head about the, what we talked about the other day. Oh, never mind, I'll talk about it another time. But it's the lease restrictions that they were talking about in the affordable housing, not the lease restrictions.
Oh, yeah,
That doesn't work on houses over $1.5 million. It just doesn't work economically. So,
I mean, I wonder, and again, I just am not up on what this all does, and the offsite certainly helps, but if there could be a contribution to the Affordable Housing Trust or some other group, based on maybe what the average cost of producing a unit was in the previous calendar year, say, if you pay us this sum of money, you can get out from doing it on your project because will allow us to do the same thing somewhere else.
yeah,
So I think tying the two issues together is good. But I need to educate myself more on how it works.
Yeah, even if you didn't have to develop property elsewhere, but if you just buy deed restrictions. Right?
Yeah, like
Just like-
however they determine the Affordable Housing Trust with the direction of the select board is the most efficient way to produce a unit. Again, it might not be in some areas of the island that you want these. And it might be more important to have the money to get a unit on the SHI list.
How many spaces do we have left that you can put 5 units of them? I mean.
A lot. I would disagree. I think there's lots of CMI land, like there's a property just across the street from us right here. That's a fairly small tract of land, but CMI, you can put a lot of really small units in there.
And we just approved going to 40 feet in this very
Yeah,
same meeting for
yeah.
a reason.
More than 5 units. Yeah, there are a lot more than 5 lots.
Yeah, 5 lots, probably not.
And I think the planning board thought that, this was, a good effort to try to create more affordable housing, and that they felt like they didn't want to be an impediment, and that they would be discussed on the floor.
it's similar to me for the one that was, a few years ago, that 1 out of every 10 building permits had to be for an affordable house, and what if you were number 10? Right, you have to wait until somebody else leaps in and does it before the next 9 people get in line, so the intention is very good, and the application isn't actually practical. So,
This is for attainable housing, which is going to be a higher income.
I know, but I'm just saying before with the, trying to find some way to parse the equation so that it gets created, and it isn't workable. That one wasn't, as we
Yeah,
found out, wasn't-
that one was more problematic than this one. Like, I
Yeah.
think this could work, and maybe it does, and I just don't know how it all works yet.
Right.
But it might also be able to work better.
Yeah.
If you gave it to people whose job it was solely to do that.
Yeah.
Not every builder or every developer would want producing this type of housing either.
Mhm. Okay,
Just something else to
well,
consider.
we'll bring Ann to a future meeting. And now 59,
Oh, okay.
and Stephen's on, I believe Stephen is patiently on is he on still?
Keys?
I'm here. Thank you, Stephen. All right. Leslie, over to you first, and then we'll,
Okay, so this would add some new definitions to the zoning bylaw related to the ongoing short-term rental debate.
Oh, I'm recused from any
You're recused.
discussion of this.
You are.
Me too.
And consistent with,
sorry, hold on a second. Now we're under a quorum.
Are you?
We have 3, no, we're 5. We're
And
just enough.
Joanna stepped out as well. She texted in the chat.
So she's gone. So now
She
we're
stepped
under a
over.
quorum. And according to John Giorgio, we can't discuss when we're under a quorum. John, I know you're lurking in the background. That's true, right? We're down to 4 FinCom members.
Yes, I'm sorry, you're down to 4, so how many, I'm sorry, is that a quorum? What do you have?
Our quorum is 5.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, so you're gonna have to put this off then.
Okay,
But what if it's by necessity because people had to recuse for conflicts of interest? Aren't there special allowances for that?
Is everyone there?
No, we have Joe and Jill online, and we have, myself, Peter, Chris, and Stephen in the room, but Chris and
So,
Stephen are recused.
no, my question is, how many finance committee members are participating now, today?
We started with 7, we're down to 6, and then 2 of those had to recuse.
Okay.
So we're down to 4, we're less than a quorum.
Yeah. So I don't think you can, invoke the rule of necessity in that circumstance.
Any chance of getting Joanna back on?
I don't know, can you,
I don't know, she said she had to step away. Not sure how long it will take. If I can, I'll come back.
Is it, if this is the last one or no?
it is the last one, Stephen, but we would rather just hear about it and not have to. Let me just, I'm going to step out and call Joanna and tell her that unless her building's on fire, she needs to come back.
So,
Or,
Denise,
yeah,
you know, the rule of necessities, is actually very difficult to invoke. And, if there is a possibility that you can put this off when you will have a quorum, without the conflicted members, I think the Ethics Commission would say that that's what you should do.
okay,
You only can really invoke it tonight if, in fact, you have to act tonight.
okay.
And you don't have to act tonight. So I apologize
Oh, that's okay.
to Stephen for sticking by, but I don't think the Finance Committee should actually hear this tonight.
Okay,
We're just trying to get the quorum back, Joe, or see if we can get someone back that can.
I'm gonna also call her in case she's not.
Why did you guys have to recuse in the last one?
No, on this one, because it's about short-term rentals.
Well, oh, because you make money off, sure.
Debatable.
No kidding.
I had to sign a statement.
My neighbor, so they can move it, so they can back in.
Right. Hey, there you go. Yeah, if you're at a neighborhood.
I'm sorry, Stephen, so you have 9 members, right? Or
Yeah,
nine,
yeah.
9 members, right?
Yeah.
And how many are conflicted out?
2. So the problem is we started tonight with 7. 2 people were absent, so we started with 7. And then and then somebody stepped away, so we were down to 6, and then the 2 conflicted members left, so now we're down to 4 unconflicted attending members.
Yeah,
So 1 short.
so normally your quorum is 5.
Yep. I couldn't get her, she went to voicemail and I texted her. Give it a couple minutes and then she doesn't leave on, then we will unfortunately have to bring Stephen.
So if she comes back, do you have 5 members that are not
Yes.
conflicted participating?
Yes, if she comes back, we'll be 5,
Okay,
so. If she doesn't come back. We'll be 4. We stayed 4. Going to give it.
John, Madam Chair, can I ask John Giorgio a legal technical question while we're waiting?
I don't think so, Stephen. We shouldn't probably be talking about it at all. I don't know. If John is willing to answer, then go right ahead.
So,
as long as the board doesn't participate in my discussion with Stephen, I think you'll be.
Gonna cover the owl's ears.
Yeah, go ahead then, Stephen.
I wonder if the definition of corporations needs an exception for co-ops, which would cover all of Nashua-Quistit and some other areas of the island where, as I think I'm sure you know, co-ops are actually owned by corporations and then owned by the underlying owners through leaseholds. And you can answer that, or you can think about
Do
it.
they have to file an annual report with the Secretary of State under either of those sections?
I don't know that.
You know, you took this, I believe, Stephen, from the October special town meeting version.
Yeah.
And it was my attempt to figure out a way to have some kind of a all-encompassing definition. So I decided to go with those, any business entity basically required to file articles of incorporation, either for profit or charitable. That's the two different sections of the MGL.
Yeah, I don't know if co-ops, it just sort of popped into my head. I don't know if co-ops are a
Yeah,
different section.
I don't know off the top of my head either.
All right, we can we can both look at it, but it's just, you know, no,
Okay.
I don't think the intent is to make it so that all of Nashua-Quistit is outside of the rule, right? Or and other co-ops like the Daffodil Evergreen area, those kind of things. So, okay,
All
we
right.
can keep waiting for Joanne.
Yeah, I'm gonna wait till 5:30, Stephen, and then I'm gonna call it. So 3 more minutes. And the odd change reappears in 3 minutes as we're all assembled, would be easier. But if not, it is what it is. Yes, Maria.
Particularly with capital.
Brian, did you say something?
That was not meant for you, Madam Chair. My apologies. I hit unmute by my mistake. I apologize.
No worries.
Now I want to hear about capital.
Maria, what were you gonna say?
Can I put Article 53 and for Article 58 for the 5th of March?
Sure. Knock yourself out.
You didn't even check your calendar. You're good at this.
March.
We don't have,
Better than anyone. There's no point in me looking at it. There is no point in me looking when Maria knows it way better than I do.
well, we don't have anything that day, so.
Yeah,
Was Article 58, that's the
that's the end.
affordable housing,
Yes.
was that discussed at the same meeting as,
Denise, if I may take advantage of this lull
Sure.
to ask you, to let me know affirmatively whether I need to be present at any future, finance committee meetings?
Okay. I think, yep, okay, we'll do, John.
I think you're coming, the African Meeting House, I believe, is coming back. Is that correct?
It's coming back on February 15th
February 15th.
as, and the potentially the wind are the sponsors for the 2 wind articles, but more specifically, the second one may come back on the 15th. I said, if you were to come back, let me know, and they have not let me know that they're coming back. So, Val has not said whether she's going back on the 15th as well. But I can't tell these people anything at this point. I can only email the committee later about that.
When is our housing review? Our deep dive into housing expenditure?
22nd.
We moved it to the 22nd.
22nd, okay. So I have some specific questions about 31 Fairgrounds, but broader than that, about procurement and different strategies about how to position the town. So maybe Brian can answer them, or maybe John would need to, I don't know.
Okay, so, so to that end, John, on the 22nd, if you could attend that meeting, because we're going to have a review of the housing for sure, and then I'll take a look at the schedule tomorrow and work with Maria and see if there's other dates that you should.
I'm
also-
sorry, that's housing warrant articles or just housing in general?
Housing in general, but there's some, we can also do the housing warrant articles at the same time, or.
The short term, you mean?
Yes, by then maybe we can do the short term, because we're working on it on the 14th. If it gets the select board on the 21st, we could do it on the 22nd. Let's try to do that. It all fits in nicely together. Okay. I'm gonna call it. I guess we can even, oh, you can come back to the table, gentlemen, and do a motion to adjourn. So, okay, there's 2 other agenda items, which is discussion of warrant articles, that someone can raise their hand and seeing no hands raised. Okay, the date of our next meeting is tomorrow at 4 o'clock. It will still be a hybrid meeting, we determined, so bring your little snow boots and pound in here, thank you. Any other business from the committee?
Denise, is this Article 59 going to be tomorrow? You said,
No, Stephen, we're going to, I'll
Next
come,
week?
I'll let you know. Yep.
okay,
Most
you.
likely next week. Thank you. We'll get. Yeah. And then, any other business before I ask for an adjournment? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Oh, can I make one comment?
Okay, go ahead, Jill.
Just want to let you all know that there is a Parks and Rec meeting on Thursday for anybody that wants to watch or attend. And that is at 4 o'clock. It's on Zoom and they are going to be discussing indoor recreation facilities.
Okay, well, we'll all be at FinCom at 4 o'clock on Thursday, so we'll have to watch it after the fact.
Well, we want people to attend, so if you have, you know.
Oh, this is for the legion of people watching live at home.
Right.
Yeah,
Got it.
well, we
Friends and family.
want the public to be part of that discussion.
Oh, I see. You weren't worried about us. You were worried about the 500 people at home watching our meeting. Okay, thank you, Jill. I'm sorry, I misunderstood. All right. We had an adjournment, motioned and seconded. Roll call, Joe,
Aye.
Jill,
Aye.
Stephen,
Hi.
Chris,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
Maria, thank you as always. Brian, Leslie, thank you so much. We really appreciate you being here. It was really
Thanks, Leslie.
helpful.
And John, thank you also.